Hi everyone! Today I'm going to talk about 11 villains that I love to hate. So in my last video, I talked about 10 of my fictional crushes, but this video is going to take a kind of a sinister turn because I'm going to talk about villains. So I'm trying to match my outfit with the theme of the video. So in my last video, since I'm talking about my fictional crushes, I wore all pink, and today I'm wearing this black dress, and I should have worn my shades or like got an eye patch or something to bring some villain energy. But anyways, today I'm going to be separating these villains into different categories. So the first category is the charismatic cult leaders categories. So these are the leaders that have like a lot of charisma. They can mesmerize you with their words, and they're expert manipulators. And this, because of their, charisma and like personal charm, it caused them to have a lot of followers and that are blinded by his charisma, and causing them to probably overlook some of the problematic aspects of this leader. So the first person on this charismatic leader list is Valentine Morgenstern from the Mortal Instruments series. So Valentine is a shadow hunter, and shadow hunters are basically half angel, half humans, whose main goal in life is to protect humans and kill demons. And besides demons, they also sort of monitor downworlders. And downworlders are magical creatures such as werewolves, vampires, and fairies. So if these downworlders harm any humans, they would also be there to keep the downworlders in check. So as a teenager, Valentine is a very passionate and visionary sort of guy. He has a lot of visions to create a better world. And I think that's the thing about villains. They often start off as visionaries, like they just want to make the world a better place, but they often become too radical in the process, and that's kind of what happened to Valentine. So the problem is that he thinks that the shadow hunters in charge at the time aren't doing their jobs properly. Like, he feels like they're letting downworlders run wild and that they're harming humans and shadow hunters, but nobody's dealing out justice and nobody's really punishing the downworlders for harming people. So he kind of mustered up his own little group of followers. They would just go and catch downworlders and kill them. And it got to a point where he didn't care if the downworlder actually harmed anybody. He just wants to wipe out all downworlders. And he really did a lot of violent things to get rid of them, like torture and literally just killing them. And I can understand why he really hates the downworlders, because Valentine's father was actually killed by a downworlder, specifically a werewolf. So I know where the hate is coming from, but that does not justify what he did. But I think Valentine is quite a multi-dimensional character. Like in the book, he's not just all evil. You can see that beneath all his like violence and hatred towards downworlders is just a person who is really hurt and who wants the best for all the shadow hunters. But of course, he's approaching this in a problematic way. And also in the Mortal Instrument series, Valentine is also a father. He has sons and daughters, and to not spoil it, I'm not going to talk about who his sons and daughters were, but you could tell that he actually loves his children, even though he's really hard on them. But in however twisted way, he still wants to be a father, I think. There is actually still some humanity inside him, but it's just all like consumed by hate. The second charismatic leader is David Haynes from The Devil's Cure. So David Haynes is a cult leader who believes that blood is sacred. And because of this belief, he is also a serial killer, and he targets all sorts of doctors. He just kills them because he thinks that it's unacceptable for doctors to take someone else's blood for research purposes. In the beginning of the book, he was caught And ironically, while he was in prison, the doctors discovered that David Haynes' blood may contain the cure for cancer. And the doctors, of course, would want to take his blood to research because they might find a cure for it. But because of David Haynes' belief that blood is sacred, he is unwilling to give the doctors a single drop. And of course, the doctors still try to take his blood, but David escaped during the process and he ran away. But it was discovered that David actually has a brother, and since he and his brother are related by blood, so the doctors were speculating that, oh, maybe his brother's blood contains the cure for cancer as well. And David Haynes was willing to even kill his own brother instead of letting the doctors get their blood. And he was just in this whole psychopathic craze for his beliefs and his religion. An interesting thing to take note of is that the book mentioned David's backstory, and that we find out that David was actually a medical student back in college. So he's actually very highly educated. And I think that's very interesting. I think that in the real world, a lot of cult leaders are actually very highly educated, and they also target highly educated people. And I don't really know why that is. I think that merits an entire video or an entire study of its own. But it just makes David even more like psychopathic and creepy because he's very intelligent. He actually knows a lot about what the doctors are doing. And you can feel like throughout the book, he seemed very calm and logical. Like, even though the things he does seems like he's insane, like an entire psychopath, but his like train of thoughts is just all so logical. It's so easy to get to spiral into his train of thought. And I think that's why I put him in this charismatic leader category, because I don't know, everything he says just makes so much sense, but also it's just so disturbing. And to add to all the disturbing things he's done, while he was a cult leader, he actually took advantage of several young girls, which is super disturbing. And one of the young girls actually bore him a son, but before the son was born, while the girl was pregnant, she ran away from the cult because she realized that the cult wasn't what she thought it was. So she ran away and gave birth to the son. And through some circumstances, David Haynes actually met his son by blood. And again, since it is his son by blood, the doctors are trying to get his son again because, oh, maybe his blood contains the cure for cancer as well. And David Haynes vowed that he will kill his son before the doctor gets his blood. But in the book, David Haynes couldn't get himself to kill his son. And you see that because of his son, his undying belief in his religion wavered for the first time. And I think I love it when you see villains struggle, especially when they start doubting their own actions. I think it just makes the villains so much more multidimensional and believable. The third villain in this category is Tennyson from Ranger's Apprentice, and he is also a cult leader. And also he is a lot more dramatic than our guy David. I would say that Tennyson is like a master in theatrics. Tennyson regularly gathers his followers into this cave-like thing and performs these very dramatic miracles. And of course, these miracles are fake. They're actually kind of like optical illusions of sorts. But he really just fooled basically all of his followers are fooled into believing that he is this divine being, and they're practically worshiping him. And in the series, our main character Will and his friends are trying to expose him and undermine him, but it's really difficult to do because all his followers are entirely dedicated to him. So of course they wouldn't believe our main guy when he tells them that Tennyson is a fake. But other than that, I think I really need to reread this book because I don't remember too much about Tennyson. But I just remember he's just such a dramatic and interesting cult leader to read about, and he's also just absolutely horrendous. The fourth charismatic leader is Napoleon from Animal Farm. And to give a brief summary of Animal Farm, it's about a group of animals and they've been treated badly by their farm owner. So in the beginning of the book, they decided to overthrow this farm owner and create a new world where all animals are equal and treated well. But gradually, this group of pigs came into power, Napoleon being their leader. And at first, these pigs seemed like great leaders, like they're trying to restore some order and trying to really push for reforms and make the world a better place. But gradually you find them making more and more rules, and you realize that these rules no longer seem to benefit all the animals. Instead, these rules are only benefiting themselves. And before you know it, you find that these pigs are actually took entire control, and they're just basically a dictatorship. And they're doing the same thing that the farm owner did to the animals, or even worse. So actually, Orwell wrote this book as an allusion to what happened during, at that time, to Soviet Russia. So he's writing about how the Russians overthrew the Tsardom only to find themselves in a dictatorship under the rule of Joseph Stalin. So Napoleon is actually the fictional counterpart of Stalin. And you see, the ironic thing is that Napoleon is a pig. So it's basically Orwell saying that these political leaders who vowed to make this world a better place, they are actually just swine. Like, they are liars. They did not keep their promises to the people, even though they said that they were trying to bring these people into this utopia. They're actually just dictators, and they're only doing things to benefit themselves and to indulge themselves. I truly hated how Napoleon treated all the animals, how he manipulated the sheep into spreading his own ideology. And I also really, it's just so horrendous what he did to Boxer the horse. So Boxer the horse is this really, really hardworking farm animal who just believes in his leaders so much that he's willing to give everything he has for the promise of a better future. But of course, he never gets it. So our second category of villains is the evil sadist category. So this is the category where these villains are literally just psychopathic, like sadists who just love torturing people and inflicting people with pain. And so the first villain in this category is Maeve, Queen of the Fae from the Throne of Glass series. So Maeve is this Fae queen, and she is just super ruthless and cruel to her subjects and to people around her. And you can just think about any like gruesome torture, like whipping or skinning people alive or cutting or whatever. I think she's done it all, and she enjoys it. So I think this is what's different from villains in this category than the previous category. Like in the previous category, like maybe Valentine's, they would actually still feel a slight remorse when killing people, or at least they would act like they feel remorse. But with Maeve, she just totally enjoys this process of causing people pain. And she is not just a master in physical torture, she's also a master in mental torture. Like, I think in the 5th book, she captured our main character, Aylin, and she literally just tortured her for months and months and months. And the worst thing is the mental torture. Like, she kept telling Aylin that your friends and the people you love are never going to come for you, and you're alone in this, even though Aylin's friends are literally on their way to rescue her. But Maeve kept telling her that, no, your friends have all abandoned you. And for Aylin, this is like worse than any amount of physical torture, because this type of mental pain is what would crush her spirit and cause her to lose hope. I think for some villains, you actually sometimes feel bad for them, or you feel like they should still have a redemption arc. But for Maeve, the second evil sadist is Zavok from the Brother Band Chronicles. So the Brother Band Chronicles is about this group of seafaring boys who goes on various adventures. And in the first book, the main group of boys who are in the same brother band were in charge of protecting their country's heirloom called the Andomal. But then the pirate Zavok came and stole the Andomal and just ran away with it. So the group of main characters has to go catch him, like track him down and get the Andomal back. And I don't know why I always just picture Zavok kind of like Jafar in Aladdin. And he's described as this really tall and like cruel, vicious character. He didn't really get much of a backstory, so he's sort of just portrayed as just like a bad, horrible person. So he even pulled the classic torturing someone for information thing. And considering Brother Band is a middle grade novel, I think that scene was kind of grotesque for a middle grade. But yeah, I guess that was just to show how cruel he was, that he would willingly torture someone for information. And I don't really have more to say about him except that he is a psycho. The next category is an interesting one, which I call the invisible villains. And these are villains who are actually not one singular person, but they're like a corporation or an organization or a group. So the most iconic of them all is Big Brother from 1984. So I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of the saying, Big Brother is always watching. And you would probably agree that Big Brother is this huge villain. But is Big Brother a singular person? Is he an individual? No, he is an entire political party. He is an ideology. He represents this entire totalitarian government. So while I was reading 1984, I was just filled with this immense sense of bleakness and hopelessness. Because, yeah, sure, there are some individuals who try to go against Big Brother, but you feel like they are trying to fight against a force that is so big and insurmountable that when I look at the odds, I just feel like it's basically impossible for them to destroy Big Brother. Because fighting against Big Brother is fighting against an entire government. And I just feel like these people just don't stand a chance. Even though I'm still rooting for them, I just don't have much faith in them. And it's creepy because if the villain is just one person, you can just kill that person and destroy him and it's over. But because Big Brother is not just one person, even if you go ahead and kill like 10 or like 100 people who are working in the government, the system still exists, which means that Big Brother is still there. The next group of invisible villains are called the Guardians from Inventing Elliot. So the Guardians are a group of high schoolers who bully people. And this isn't just like the spontaneous bullying that we see in movies. For example, like picking on a person and like calling them names or shoving them into lockers. No, like every single act of bullying that are dealt out by the Guardians are pre-planned. So they would select someone to be bullied and they would plan out their punishment. And it's just so sickening. This book is actually highly inspired by 1984. So I think the author is trying to make the Guardians kind of like a high school version of Big Brother. But honestly, while I was reading this book, I found it a little bit too dramatic and improbable. Because I think it's like improbable for like a high school to have this type of organization. I just didn't find it as believable as Big Brother, because like a government like Big Brother could actually happen in real life, and I would argue is already happening in real life. But I don't think, or at least I fervently hope, that high schoolers don't have the capacity to organize such a group that would deal out calculated bullying. The third invisible villain is Wicked from The Maze Runner. So it might seem a little bit too obvious that like the villain organization in this series is called Wicked, like duh, but actually Wicked is an acronym for World in Catastrophe Kill Zone Experiment Department. So actually this Wicked is like an organization of like a department of scientists, and they're doing experiments on a group of teenagers in order to try to find a cure for a brain disease. And they refer to the brain as the kill zone because this particular brain disease messes with your brain. And if you get the disease, it causes you to slip into insanity, and you literally start losing your humanity and start acting like zombies. Like you just lose the ability to communicate, and you just walk around and screech and like bite other people. And if you're bitten by these infected people, you get the disease as well. So it is a very serious disease. So that's why they're doing these experiments. But a lot of the experiments that they're doing on these teenagers are very inhumane and immoral. First of all, they're doing this experiment without the teenagers' consent. Like these teenagers don't know that they're being experimented on, because before they get put into the maze, which is basically like they're experimenting, like their lab, they get their memories wiped out, so they don't know that they're in an experiment. And so it's basically like a do the ends justify the means situation. Like sure, Wicked is doing all these things in order to find a cure and save humanity. Like that is like their ultimate goal, and it seems to be a good goal. But does this justify all the cruelty and inhumane things they've done to the teenagers? It's a tough question to answer, and I think this is like a theme that the Maze Runner series is trying to explore and discuss. The last category of villains is called the confusing villains. And just like the name suggests, these villains are confusing. Like they're unpredictable. So what I mean by this is that they might treat you like trash one day, but at other times they're so tender and nice to you that you start doubting that the person who mistreated you a day ago was the same person. So it's like in an abusive relationship where the husband beats up the wife or vice versa, and then after beating them up, he or she would say, "I love you" afterwards. So it's just like literally like a never-ending cycle where the abuser abuses another person and then says "I love you" and then abuse them again and then say "I love you." And it's just so confusing. So one such villain is Arobynn Hamel from The Throne of Glass. So he is sort of this assassin who takes in a lot of homeless or like fatherless children, and he trained our main character Selena to become an assassin. So in this aspect, he is like a father figure to Selena because he literally raised her and trained her to become an assassin. But at the same time, he also treats her like his own property. So this causes Selena to have very conflicting emotions because on the one hand, Arobynn is like a father figure or a brother or even like a lover to her. Like Selena is very grateful to Arobynn for raising her and training her, but also Arobynn beats her up a lot of times and he's super controlling. He takes away the people Selena loves away from her because he's just this control freak. So Selena is just a confused mess. And so was I when I read the book. These type of villains really just mess with your brain. It's probably worse than like the brain disease in the Maze Runner. Like when he died in the 5th book, I didn't even feel happy like I normally would when a villain has finally been vanquished. I just feel really empty inside. And I think that's what a confusing villain would do to you, because you feel ambivalent about them. Like, because sometimes they're just so nice and so kind to you, and sometimes they're totally horrible. I think in this aspect, Arobynn is truly a very well-crafted villain to make you feel that way, and he's actually one of my favorite villains to read about. Our second confusing villain is Li Guohua from Fang Siqi de 初恋乐园. So this book is written by a Taiwanese author, and as a Taiwanese myself, I have to promote this book. So Fang Siqi de 初恋乐园, even though it's fiction, it's actually based on a true story, and it's sort of an autobiographical account of how the author got sexually assaulted by her cram school teacher when she was only 13 years old. So Li Guohua is this 50-year-old cram school teacher who is notorious for sexually assaulting his female students. And it's just so crazy because these students are only in middle school, like 13 or 14 years old. And you may ask me why I put him in the confusing territory. Like, shouldn't he be put into the downright evil, like no redemption category? But in the book, you find out that after he assaulted our main character, he told the girl that he loved her and that what he did was his way of showing love for her. And, you know, as a 13-year-old girl, you would get so confused. And I think this book really discusses this topic, and it talks about how society is what allows these things to happen, because we see from the book that our cram school teacher is not the only perpetrator. Instead, it's society's indifference as well as stigma toward the topic of sex would lead these victims to blame themselves for what happened. And also the guilt and shame for what happened would keep them from ever seeking help. In this book, we also see the destructive power of words, how one of the most traumatic experiences that a girl can possibly face is like wrapped up in this, disguised in this word called love. And it reminds me a lot of 1984 actually, that like where the most, like the worst tortures ever are conducted in the ministry called love. It just talks about how words can really be so deceiving and it can destroy a person. And it's just so horrifying to think that this book is based on a true story, and that Fang Siqi in this book is not just one single person. There are multiple girls out there who had faced this immense trauma, and they have no voice and they have no way of seeking help. And I really recommend this book because I think we often feel, queasy and uncomfortable to read about topics like this, but I think it's important that we know about them, especially since these girls don't really have a voice. And I think this book is trying to give them all a voice. Sadly, I have to say that after publishing the book, the author committed suicide not long afterwards. So this book is sort of like what she left to the world, like her last words, and she wants us to read about this. So despite being very disturbing, I still think it's a really impactful and meaningful book to read. So that's all for the 11 villains that I love to hate. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't believe I'm almost done with my 12 video challenge. This is already video 11, and I hope you've enjoyed my videos so far, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!